What's up, everybody? I'm bringing you the book summary of Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, Negotiating as if your life depended on it. In this video, I will be talking about the key concepts, takeaways, and some of the stories from the book. I hope you like it, and please like, share, and subscribe to support my channel. The author of this book, Chris Voss, is a former FBI hostage negotiator. In this book that he has authored, we will learn how to get over the aversion of negotiation. Most of us don't like being part of negotiations. We will learn a bit more about the human psychology, which will guide us through the process of negotiation without feeling lost or helpless, and to do so in a relationship affirming way. He quotes, "Negotiation doesn't mean browbeating or grinding someone down. But in this world, you get what you ask for. You just have to ask correctly." And most importantly, we will get insights into a negotiation toolkit. I will share some techniques with you with the help of stories from this book, and I hope you can apply them in your daily lives. Let me know in comments if you have a negotiation story of your own to share. The purpose of negotiation, as Chris Voss has put it, is to gather information and influence behavior. We will come back to this chart a little later in the video. Negotiation was earlier taught as an economic problem, and the goal was to find the optimal response in various scenarios in order to maximize your own value. Man was assumed to be a rational being, and the role of emotions was largely ignored, even considered a roadblock. Versus now, Daniel Kahneman has shown that man is a very irrational being. People are neither fully rational nor completely selfish. That's because we suffer from cognitive biases. These biases impact the way we see the world, and emotions play a crucial role in negotiations, which is why their role must never be ignored. Chris Voss joined Harvard for a short executive course on negotiation. Professor Robert Mnookin, when he found out that a former FBI hostage negotiator is on the campus, invited Chris Voss just to chat. They were joined by another professor, Gabriella Blum. Both Professor Robert and Gabriella are leading scholars in conflict resolution and negotiations. And on Robert's cue, his secretary put a tape recorder on the table. Chris was tricked. "We got your son, boss. $1 million or he dies. Come on, give me the money or I'll cut your son's throat." In a hostage situation, you always feel fear, even in a role-playing situation. You feel panic, but you have to calm yourself down. Chris calmed himself down, stared at Robert, smiled, and replied, "How am I going to do that?" "So, you're okay with me killing your son?" "I'm really sorry, Robert. How do I get you any money right now? Much less $1 million, if I don't even know he's alive." This went on for a little while, but the discussion got nowhere. Professor Gabriella joined in, but all she got was the same questions from Chris. Meanwhile, the discussion shifted from a threat of murder to a logistical issue of getting the money and the proof of life. All these are the problems that Robert had to solve. All these were Chris's problems, but Robert was the one trying to solve them. The discussion ended with Robert conceding, "I suppose the FBI might have something to teach us. But was it just a fluke, or do these techniques actually work?" Chris didn't just hold his ground, but he came out on top against the best of the best. As the course progressed in more negotiation exercises and in several situations, Chris came out on top all the time. It wasn't a lucky one-off. With old school experiential knowledge, I was killing guys who knew every cutting-edge trick you can find in a book. Our techniques worked everywhere. So much so that one of the trainers, Sheila, she had to say this: "All you do is say no and stare at the Harvard Law School students and they fall apart. Is it really that easy?" He didn't simply say no. He employed techniques which FBI had perfected over the years. These are some of the techniques which we will be talking about later on in the video. 3 armed fugitives were inside an apartment in New York while the SWAT team waited outside. Chris spoke through the door repeatedly. "I suppose you don't want to come out. It looks like you don't want to go back to jail. It looks like you're afraid that if you open the door, we will come in with guns blazing." Not one time did he make any threats. After 6 hours of silence, the door finally opened and the fugitives came out unarmed. They all gave the same answer: "We didn't want to get caught or shot. You calmed us down." Tactical empathy is when you understand the problems of your counterparts. They become more receptive to listening to your arguments when you understand their problems. With this, we are able to build a rapport and have some trust between two parties. This dispels some of the negative emotions from a negotiation, such as fear, suspicion, anger, and distrust. One of the stories shared in the book is about a fundraiser trying to raise money from a donor. But one donor in particular has rejected one project after another. She has made it clear that her requirement is that the money should directly go to the end beneficiary of a project and nobody else. But despite showing all relevant projects suiting the donor's profile, fundraiser is not able to convince the donor. Sensing some frustration building up, she resorts to using some labels such as, "It seems you're really passionate about this gift and want to find the right project." After using such labels, the donor ends the conversation abruptly saying, "You understand me. I trust you will find the right project." And just like that, without even finalizing the project for which she wants to donate money, she agrees to pay up. Now, why did this happen? Because there was an underlying dynamic. The real obstacle was this woman needed to feel that she was understood. So what is labeling? It's nothing but a way of acknowledging someone's emotion, validating it by calling it out. You sense an emotion in a conversation and you label it. How do you label it? You say something like, "It seems like," "It sounds like," "It looks like," and then you validate their emotions. Once the feelings are validated as labels, they will talk about it. And that's why labels are so powerful, because they uncover these factors which are driving the behavior. In this example we saw, it was a positive label and it reinforced that behavior. A positive label also brought out the real obstacle forward and it removed the problem. Further down in the video, we have a story with the negative label which diminish that behavior as well. And people don't even notice when their emotions are acknowledged. This is the story that actually changed the way FBI asked questions in a hostage negotiation, and I'll tell you why this is the case. But let's first hear the story. So, a Pittsburgh drug dealer kidnapped the girlfriend of another drug dealer. Now, the victim drug dealer went to FBI for help, but he was not yet coached on asking the right questions. And the questions that FBI would ask are bulletproof, watertight questions, which are proof of life, such as, what was the name of the girlfriend's childhood teddy bear? Something was so specific that only the kidnapped person can answer. But again, this is a closed-ended question which will have probably a one-word answer, and the kidnapper can actually go to the person, ask that question, get the answer, and give it on the phone, and that's it. It's done in 5 seconds. But what was amazing in this case is a victim drug dealer on the phone blurted out, "Hey dog, how do I know she's alright?" The kidnapper actually went silent, and then he said, "Well, I'll put her on the phone." This unsophisticated drug dealer pulled off a phenomenal victory in negotiation. To get the kidnapper to volunteer to put the hostage on the phone is massive. So let's take a look at what happened here. Open-ended questions such as how or what questions will make your counterpart try and solve the problem. If you remember, this is exactly what happened in the Harvard campus between Professor Robert and Chris Voss. He was asking, "How do I know he's alive? How do I get you money?" And that actually shifted the discussion because Robert was thinking of coming up with answers to solve these how problems. So these how questions and what questions will make your counterpart try and solve the problem because they still feel respected. They still feel they are in control. They still feel they are the ones driving the discussion and they will come up with the answers. They think that it's their idea, but essentially with enough questions, you can shape the conversation. So that's why these questions are called calibrated questions, because they can actually shape the discussion. You are asking questions, but you are shaping the conversation. Your counterpart will spend mental and emotional energy to solve your problem. How and what questions is a way of saying no to your counterpart, but they still feel respected. Here is another story from the book about calibrated questions. American citizen Jose was kidnapped in Ecuador by a Colombian-based rebel group. The captors wanted $5 million. His wife Julie was on the other end of the call, negotiating for Jose's release. She was trained and coached by FBI on asking the correct questions. So she asked a lot of open-ended, calibrated questions, such as, how can we raise that much money? How do we pay until we know he is alive? And by constantly asking calibrated questions, the ransom came down to $16,500, which the kidnappers demanded immediately. But again, she came back with a response, how can I give you this money immediately when I have to sell my cars and my assets? How can I pay upfront? How can I pay immediately? Meanwhile, the ransom amount was already down to a number the family could afford to pay. But Jose found an opportunity and escaped. He found his way back home, and when he was back, the FBI asked him, how did it go down there? He responded that they would all get together in the evenings and have a big discussion about how to respond to the constant questions Julie was asking them. So here is why calibrated questions are so fundamental in negotiations. The other side feels that they can respond to, but they have no fixed answer to these questions. It also gives the other party an illusion of control without realizing how constrained they are by it. After his stint with the FBI, Chris Voss was on a training assignment in the UAE. However, his project ran into some issues, due to which he was not able to meet the payment as agreed with the contractors. They had agreed to pay $2,000 per month, but now he could pay only $500. If he called the contractors and told them that I can only pay $500 instead of $2,000 as it was initially agreed, they will not agree to it. They will feel cheated and disrespected, which is why he came up with an accusation audit. Accusation audit is nothing but a list of all the accusations that can possibly be put on Chris by the counterparts. What it does is it actually addresses their fears and anger and all their emotions. So he got all his contractors on a call and hit them with a script. Here is an excerpt from that script. It goes, by the time we get off the phone, you're going to think I am a lousy businessman. I can't budget or plan. You're going to think Chris Voss is a big talker. He might even have lied to me. Still, I wanted to bring this opportunity to you. After he has anchored their emotions really low, and acknowledge their worst fears and anger, all of a sudden, call is not about going from $2,000 to $500. It is about how not to lose $500. Every single one of them took the deal. No counter offers, no complaints. So we saw how using a carefully designed script of acquisition audit, Chris was able to lower the expectations. He anchored their expectations really low. He also acknowledged their emotions. He validated their feelings and acknowledged their fears, anger, and any negative emotion. When he did that and he labeled it, he called it out proactively, they were able to put it aside and then think, how can we move forward from here? So the call was no more about going from $2,000 to $500, but how not to lose $500. By the way, there are some cognitive biases at work here, such as loss aversion, and also the cognitive biases that I mentioned earlier in the presentation, prospect theory, framing effect. So do have a look at them. An example for that is if you change one or two variables, $100, the exact same amount, can either be a glorious victory or a vicious insult. And finally, if Chris had not anchored their expectations low, they would have felt insulted and would have declined to take that offer. Some more techniques mentioned in the book are mirroring. This technique builds rapport and develops an understanding between the two parties. It also makes you likable and gives the impression that you understand the other party. It's very simple yet effective. All you do is repeat the last 3-4 words of your counterpart in a conversation. So if they say that I don't want to lose any business, these are very difficult times, you repeat these are very difficult times and then what you want to say ahead. Listening is critical. The more you know about someone, their motives, their drivers, the more power you have to use these techniques for your advantage. And there is nothing more frustrating when somebody you're trying to talk to is not ready to listen. And ignoring their side builds frustration, which is the number one reason to break down negotiations. In the beginning of this video, we mentioned the purpose of negotiation is to gather information and influence behavior. Listening is the most critical step you can do in gathering that information. By actively listening, you gather information and applying the techniques that we spoke about in this video, you can influence their behavior. Reputation precedes you. So make sure when you're engaging in a negotiation, you keep the reputation in mind. Some CEOs have a bad reputation of dealing poorly with their counterparts, and soon nobody wants to deal with them. Establish a range. In a salary negotiation with a potential employer, go with the range instead of a single figure like a 30-40% hike. Say something like, top places like so and so offer 130 to 170,000 and mention some non-monetary requirements along with it. Research has shown that job applicants received a significantly higher packages if they named a range, especially if the range was bold string. But be prepared to settle for the lower end of your range. And finally, I want to end this video with one last story. Let the other guy go first. Detective novelist Raymond Chandler was hired to write a 1944 classic, Double Indemnity. In negotiation with the producers and directors, he demanded $150 per week and asked for 3 weeks of time to finish the job. The producers and the director could barely stop themselves from laughing because they were planning to pay $750 per week, and they knew that movie scripts took months to write. So this is always a good idea to let the other guy go first and hear from their end so that with more information, with more knowledge, you have a better chance of succeeding in negotiation. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something from this video. Do let me know in comments what your thoughts are, and like, share, and subscribe to support my channel. Do you have some tips on negotiation of your own? Do let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching again.